Alright, so this video is going to be focused on the introduction to trend line. So typically you want to start off the monthly time frame. I like to look for, you want to look for the trend. Where is this market going? Whoops. So overall, this one goes to the 98. This broker only goes to 98, so I might have to do this on TradingView. But overall, the trend is mostly up. There's more data on it if I went on TradingView, but I know for a fact it's up on that trend. But at the same time, looking at it more currently, you see that there are minor trends even on the weekly at this point. So for months, even years, it has bounced off that line. It went up, bounced, went up, bounced, went up, bounced, and then it created a pattern, which it didn't complete. Like, it created a head and shoulders, but that didn't break. So I'm telling you, they may create the pattern, but it doesn't always mean that the pattern will will break. Because now you see here, there is a minor head and shoulders on a lower time frame that reversed everything and pushed it back up. So that created a new trend. For a little while, it was into its own channel, which also made sort of a wedge. But the wedge doesn't always break, especially on these type of pattern channels sometimes. Instead, it created a new trend, and then it broke the trend. So if it breaks the trend line and on the lower time frame comes back, or typically it's going to like break through and close, or break through, come back, and then drop down even further, that's additional confirmation that the trend is changing. You're not always going to get a perfect channel. Sometimes it could turn into a different pattern, especially on these higher time frames. You'll notice that it can turn into a head and shoulders, and head and shoulders can definitely have a lower shoulder, and then just trend again for a while. And this is where using the ray function actually would help, because that would show you that eventually it could wedge out and break. I actually use the ray more than the regular. You don't have to do it, but this is just makes things easier for me, because even with this, it crosses. It shows that it's over time it's going to get more narrow and break up. But because there is this stronger trend on the monthly, at some point it breaks at a high. It could potentially happen early, because right now we're nearing, at a strong trend line. We go to a lower time frame perspective. All the rejection is about here. If we look at the horizontal time of things. So can go further if you want to try to create another area of support, potential support, but it's not going to be too necessary since it's not even close. But sometimes I just leave things kind of marked out, and at the same time marking these trend lines. You still want to keep in mind patterns, what is going on currently on the lower time frames. So on the lower time frames, there are still more channels. The channel that wedged, then it went higher for a bit, it expanded channel, and to make things easier, I'll turn off the ray. Maybe I'll pause the video as I turn off the ray to make this video go a little bit. So, well, actually, I'll just it channeled down just like that too. Sometimes it can break through and come back in. It created a flag and head and shoulders. So that's a head and shoulders. It broke down, came back up, and then that old previous head and shoulders became the shoulder of that one, and it broke down and retested the previous channel, also a flag, and broke back down. And then in this case, we can see it actually created a wedge down here. It's a weird wedge, but it is a wedge. Wedges can come in weird shapes. Whoops. But even when you're creating your patterns, all you're doing is using trend lines. That's what I'm trying to highlight right now. And you'll notice that when you're even though you're creating a wedge, sometimes you could be the pattern itself could be creating another pattern. So you see that head and shoulders right there. It's a wedge, yes, but it's a head and shoulders. And a bigger W pattern. Triple bottom. Up here, we created the M. Even though there was a trend. Whoops. Wedge M. All you're doing is utilizing the trend lines to find the pattern, but you have to be able to see the structures. You have to know the structures to be able to see them, but it's just piecing it together and not just randomly placing things. Like, you'll see some people just completely cutting through the entire structure. That's not what you want to do. You don't want to just, what's an example of when I'm creating my trend lines? I do not want to just randomly place it like that. Okay, maybe let me change this color. Sorry, this is a new computer. Graphics are much stronger on this one, so I don't know how it's going to affect the video, but you don't want to just completely cut through just like that, especially when you're all the way right here. You're cutting through structure that has already broken just to try to make what you think you see But in reality, you should be looking at what's going on now. And that doesn't mean going all the way back up here to make it. Sometimes, yeah, you can do it like that, but you want to try to look at what's happening in the now to be able to create these structures. So in this case, that's where I see the wedge. At first, it kind of like channeled down in a way, but then the pattern changed. But even then, it was kind of like a wedge that just broke, bounced off of the channel that it was pretty much in, and then broke upwards. You don't want to break through a structure that was already created, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, use it for the temporary moment, but once it breaks, just kind of take advantage of it to kind of find the retest that if it actually happened at a lower time frame. So by what I mean by retest, break, come back, hit the pattern, and it doesn't close inside the pattern. It just kind of taps the structure and it just drops. Kind of like what you see here. This is a higher time frame structure. It broke out and came here, touched it, touched it, touched it. Sometimes it can come back in, but drops right back in, down, and then it just kept going. You want to find trends. That's what these trend lines are for. You're looking for direction. Direction, channel, direction, bouncing, pattern. So that's it for channels. Might as well call it patterns at the same time. The next video is going to be more into how I analyze this. How I fully analyze this.